Hello Magic Drafters, we got a new set for you. It's Throne of Eldraine. It's Camelot meets the Brother Grimm fairy tales in this whimsical, hyper fantasy world type of set in the Magic universe. I don't know, it's crazy. But we're here to talk about the best cards to keep an eye out for in a draft, how to navigate that draft, and then what cards work really well and combo well together in this set. But something to note real quick is that we were just on Ravnica, which essentially forced you to play two colors, at least two colors, while Throne of Eldraine has given us a new mechanic called Adamant, where we get an additional value or effect if we can use 3 of the same color mana of the spell when we cast it. So it's not saying we need to go monocolored, but it does give us a reason to lean into one color more than the other. And I'm not saying you should go monocolored, but there is a case for it, especially when you see the 3 color rares that accompany each in the set. They really reward you for staying in that lane. Anyway, I trust you know which rares and mythics are worth drafting, so we're going to touch on the commons and uncommons to keep an eye out for to really give you that edge in your drafts. Let's get into it. The other way more exciting mechanic in this set is Adventure. Think of it like a new form of split card. When it's in your hand, you can first send the creature on an adventure where it does something, you get some benefit, and then it's placed in exile. Once there, you can cast it like any other creature, or skip the adventure piece and just play it from your hand onto the battlefield like any other creature. Now into drafting, each of the 10 dual color pairings work. Each only has 2 uncommons though, 1 gold and 1 multicolored card, with a rare or 2 as well. So let's touch on what each is trying to do. Blue-white has flyers and shiny things, as we see with Shine Chaser and Arcanist Owl. White-black is Value Knights. Wintermoor Commander leads the charge with Resolute Rider in the front lines. White-red is Aggro Knights. Inspiring Veteran pumps all Knights, which Fireborn Knight appreciates. White-green is Go Wide Adventure Times, where Wandermare grows bigger and Oakham Ranger is there to pump the board. Blue-black is Fairy Disruption. Drown in the Lock and Covetous Urge really help us ruin our opponent's plans. Blue-red is Thank You Sir, May I Draw Another. Improbable Alliance and Lock Dragon help us do just that. Blue-green is Big Bodies. Marleaf Pixie ramps us into Thunderous Snapper to keep the action flowing. Black-red is Food Fight Night Tribal. Steelclaw Lance is nice, and Elite Headhunter throws food tokens at our opponent's pathetic creatures. Black-green is Feast or Famine food tokens with Savvy Hunter and Deathless Knight wanting us to be well fed. And red-green is non-human tribal with General Grumgully and Rampart Smasher there to keep the action flowing as well. Now with there only being a couple gold uncommons, that means the majority of our deck will be built with single color cards. So let's review the strongest commons and uncommons because, well, good cards are good, so let's draft as many of those as possible. Mysterious Pathlighter makes all of our adventure creatures bigger. Archon of Absolution can be a crushing card for your opponent if they can't remove it right away. And Glass Casket is amazing in this set. Even if it only hits 3 drops or less, we have to remember it also gives us an artifact in play, which in this format can be important. One example is seen in the white commons with Flutterfox. A vanilla 2/2 is rarely exciting, but this guy gets flying so long as we control an artifact or enchantment. Ardenvale Tactician lets us tap down our opponent's stuff with its adventure piece paired with a strong flying body. And Trapped in the Tower is fantastic. It's pseudo removal, it's an enchantment we still control, just all around a good card. Couple honorable mentions, Youthful Knight is a card I like if you have ways to pump its power up, and Shepherd of the Flock, being able to bounce your own creature to avoid removal or repeat some ETB trigger is super powerful for 1 mana, and its 3 power is quite important in this set. Moving on to blue and their uncommons, I really like Sage of the Falls. It provides a very stubborn creature to deal with on the ground, and it helps activate those second card draw effects. Hypnotic Sprite is basically a free counterspell attached to a 2/1 flyer, which is just ridiculous value. Fairy Vandal also makes the list, since blue is often going to draw you more cards, and if you can get this up to 3 or 4 power, it can take over a game. And then some of the best commons you're always happy to play in blue are Queen of Ice, an extremely flexible creature that allows you to be more aggressive or slow down your opponent through its adventurings, while also being a nuisance as an attacker or defender. Runaway Together, I may be biased from the early access streamer event, but this card always made a significant impact. Yes, you need both targets, it's not all that great in some situations, but when it's good, it's almost too good to come back from. So yeah, I really like this card. Charm Sleep is fantastic as well. Even with there being some bounce effects in the set and enchantment removal being more common, it's still a great pseudo removal card. Oh, and I really like Opt. It's an efficient card you want in your starting hand. It's always a decent top deck and works especially well in those decks that want to draw extra cards. On to black to see what this color brings to the table, and what it brings is pies. Bake into a Pie removes threats and gives us a food token. Reeve Soul just brings removal for smaller threats. It's a sorcery, no pie, but still a great black common. And with the night focus in this set and in this color specifically, I really like Smitten Swordmaster to help with that killing blow. The uncommons are unsurprisingly very strong as well. Bognaughty is great, and a flyer that can provide removal through food tokens is all kinds of good. Epic Downfall, we of course want as many copies as we can get. Foulmire Knight is great if you just need a body to stave off an attacker, but if you have time, you can send it on an adventure to draw an extra card, and that's a fairy tale I'm happy to read as often as I can. And I have to call out Revenge of Ravens because this card should not be overlooked and will be reason enough to make sure you have enchantment removal in your deck. Trust me, this card is brutal to deal with. And in case you're not aware, Sir Conrad deals damage for all kinds of reasons, one of them being when a creature card leaves your graveyard, which combos very well with Forever Young because it lets you return all the creatures in your graveyard to the top of your library. Cauldron Familiar with Witch's Oven is a nice little combo you can keep repeating every turn as well, and just as you can see, there's a lot of fun stuff going on in this color. For red, Scorching Dragonfire and Searing Barrage are excellent instant speed removal options to make sure you stay ahead on board. I really like Raging Redcap because I assume you'll have artifacts to equip or some other creature that can help you take advantage of its double strike mechanic. Bloodhaze Wolverine, if you're able to draw that second card, can be difficult to handle from the get-go. And Brimstone Trebuchet works in the aggro Knights build, but really any red color pairing, because it can offer that useful reach to stop smaller flying bodies while dealing constant damage no matter how gummed up the board is. With the uncommons, we have Slaying Fire, which is a card you're always happy to play. Embereth Shieldbreaker is a nice flexible option to get rid of your opponent's artifacts, and Sir Kara the Bold helps you get some more damage in while also helping you not run out of gas as you ping down your opponents. And my personal goal for drafting Throne of Eldraine is to win with Righteousness into Fling for the win. Fling is just a decent card to play regardless, but it's especially good in those creature-heavy builds, and I'm probably going to play Righteousness if I am in red-white. It's just a thought. Moving on to green, we have a lot of fun synergies with foodstuffs, but also adventure cards and the Adamant mechanic. I think if you're in green, the sooner you know what abilities you want, like adventure creatures or food creation, will greatly affect the weight you put on these cards. So with that, my best rated commons are Fierce Witchstalker, a 4/4 Trampler for 4 mana, which also gets you a food token, is powerful in any deck. A card that hits on the adventure and food synergies is Curious Pair, but it's only a 1/3, so if you don't need those synergies, this card may not be worth it. Rosethorn Acolyte has also been great as a mana fixer and ramp option on a solid 2/3 body. And green always struggles with interaction, but we get a decent option without muscle. Its drawbacks is that it's a little expensive, its sorcery speed can be fizzled by instant speed interaction, and can sometimes end up with you 2 for 1ing yourself. But the Adamant piece gives you indestructible, meaning you can now suplex your opponent without risk of injuring yourself. I'd say overall it's worth it. Fell the Pheasant is a card I would mainboard 1 copy of, especially on Arena in a best of 1, because I'm assuming every deck will have some flyers, plus you get a food token out of it, and with the uncommons we find all kinds of great value as well. Edgewall Innkeeper is phenomenal, and to make it plain, drawing cards wins you games in Limited. Keeper of Fables is tremendous as it's a decent body that also provides more card draw as well. I'm a fan of Trail of Breadcrumbs, and I think it's a bit underrated, again because of the incredible card advantage it can generate. Beanstalk Giant fits any green build as well. It's great in 1 or 2 color decks and invaluable when you are splashing for a 3rd. Now some noteworthy artifacts and combos to keep an eye out for. Rosethorn Halberd is a match made in heaven with Flutterfox, making it a 4/3 flyer on turn 3. Scalding Cauldron is good removal for any build that needs it. While it's in play, it also offers you artifacts synergies, and 3 damage at a creature at instant speed can make a big impact. Spinning Wheel does work as pseudo removal and mana fixing. Golden Egg also helps if you need mana fixing for 1 or 2 cards in your deck, or if you need as many food options as possible. Lucky Clover is a card that's growing on me. The risk of drawing it in the late game is reason enough to not play it, but if you have that adventure focused build and are fortunate enough to get this in play early, then it can more than pay for itself. Or maybe you can work in other uses for it so it's not always just a dead card on board. That's always something to keep in mind as well if you're going down the adventuring road. Heraldic Banner is invaluable in those Adamant monocolored decks or one that leans heavily into 1. If your deck is split down the middle, I would not play this card. Clockwork Servant is similar in the sense that you want to be able to take advantage of the Adamant piece, but it doesn't require you to be as close to monocolored or as heavily leaning into 1 color. Prophet of the Peak is an okay curve topper, but I really like Roving Keep, as it can be a big body you need to just take control of a game that's gotten into the grindy stages. And to reiterate, I would play Artifact and Enchantment removal in the main board, especially in best of 1, but even in best of 3. There are a lot of artifacts and enchantments in this set, and oftentimes having the ability to remove them is worth the risk of not having a target. And I would say all the common lands are worth playing as well if you can get them late enough in the draft. I like getting that value from a land slot in my deck, and it's a great way to gain a tiny advantage that you can build on over your opponent. For rankings, I think black is the standalone best color in the set. I think red is close behind, and I think blue, green, and white are also very strong, but also more in the supporting need a direction type of focus. For the dual color rankings, I have the 3 knight pairs in the top tier: white, black, white, red, and red, black. I also have white, green, go wide adventure. Black, green, food token synergies has also been very strong for me, and red, green, non-human tribal as well. Then I have blue, black, blue, red, blue, green, and blue, white flyers. As with any draft though, you want to make sure that you're drafting the best deck for the seat that you're sitting in, so don't fixate on these rankings too much. And look, all the gold cards, the multicolored cards are great. You're going to want them in your deck if you end up in those colors just because of the synergy they bring, the value they're going to bring to you. But the question becomes, When do I draft the gold cards? Or how early do you pick them? Because there's not a lot of mana fixing in this set, especially if you're outside of green. I guess there is tournament grounds for Mardu Knights, but the point is, if you fixate on that gold card too early, you're probably going to build a deck that's not as strong had you stayed open early on. If you have a pack, for example, that has some strong uncommons and strong commons, sometimes people will jump towards that gold card and then force those two colors. Say Steel Claw Lances in the pack, and they think, I'm going to jam Black Red Knights, I'm going to make it work, all will be well. But in that pack is something like Bog Naughty or Bake into a Pie. I personally would take the stronger monocolored card because it keeps me open and still adds a good amount of value to the deck that I end up in. I'm more likely to play that monocolored card than Steel Claw Lands, and if I end up in a different color pairing, I'm not going to splash that kind of card in. The counter argument to that though is if it's a really weak pack or the gold card is just such high value that it's worth the risk of just not playing it versus having it in your deck. Sometimes you just take it and you just hope it works out, and if it doesn't, well, you know, not every draft is going to have the most amazing deck ever come out of it. But at the end of the day, all you can do is draft the best deck for the seat that you're in, or the bots that, you know, are in your pool if you're on Arena. But with that, what are you looking at when you're drafting? What color pairing do you think is going to be the strongest, or where do you rank the colors individually? Is there one that you're most excited to play or hoping that you can pull off in a draft? Love to hear your thoughts on it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. Thank you to Card Kingdom for sponsoring the channel. Wish you all the best of luck in your drafts. We'll see you in the comments. See you in the next video. Peace.